This is the Game Changers Experience. Deep dive conversations with leading business disruptors, Olympic athletes, celebrities, entrepreneurs, and influencers from around the world. This show will teach you insights about the winning principles in mindset, productivity, marketing, branding, entrepreneurship, business strategy, and more. Hosted by Productivity Authority, business strategist, former elite athlete, author, and public speaker, Adam Strong.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another live Game Changers Experience live show with myself, Adam Strong. Today's show is all about how you can build your brand through PR and media. So it's interesting because over the last few years in particular, I've had the real privilege of being featured in some of the biggest magazines, been featured on radio, and been featured on some of the biggest podcasts out in the industry, from the likes of the Huffington Post, from the likes of Forbes magazine, from the likes of Sage magazine as well as some of the biggest podcasts out there as well, and being featured on things like BBC Radio, for example. It's been a real privilege to be able to share not only my story, but to be able to kind of give people some different perspective of the conversation and the topic. So, you know, you don't have to be an author. You don't have to be like a major brain scientist. I just want to kind of disclose that straight away before kind of getting into today's conversation. So listen, I mean, I'm really thoroughly going to enjoy today's conversation. Whether you're listening to me live, use the hashtag live, use the hashtag replay. That'd be super awesome. And if you're listening to me also on the live show as well, do me a favor, PLC, post like a comment. If this is the very first time that you're listening to me, congratulations, by the way. I promise not to bore you. Okay, that's a big promise from me. But if you are listening to me here, we are streaming through LinkedIn Live and on YouTube as well. And if you are listening to me on those platforms, you will see a little bell notification, which is here on the top right-hand side by my profile picture. If you click on that bell notification, every time that I put some content out, do a live video, you'll get a notification saying that we're going to be doing a live show, whatever it might be, so that you guys don't miss out. So looking forward to today's conversation. If you're listening to me on the podcast, of course, we're going to put all the show notes and any tips, tactics, or anything like that. If you're listening to me, if you don't have time to listen to watch the video, whatever it might be, now's a great opportunity. If you're working out in the gym, making the daily commute, whatever it might be, you can plug in, listen to my podcast, and I'm going to give you a load of value bombs from today's episode. Just want to kind of like, for full disclosure, if you haven't already got your notebook and pen handy right now is an opportunity to do so. Okay, so let's get straight into today's conversation, which is all about how to build brand through PR and media. And you know, it's really interesting because, you know, as I mentioned to you, you don't have to be a big thought leader. You don't have to be anyone special, or you don't feel like you need to be privileged, okay, to be featured in the media or to get any particular type of PR. So I just wanted to share with you for full disclosure. But I want to give you guys some real big tactics here about how you can build brand through PR and media, sorry. And I want to give you some kind of real hard-hitting tips about what we do in our own business and what we do and teach our clients about how they can leverage PR and media to build brand, okay? So it's interesting, right? So I want to kind of give you a bit of a snapshot about let's start from the media angle first of all, okay? So one of the things that we do actually, and this is the research part, this is really important, okay? If you're using platforms such as Twitter or on LinkedIn, and Twitter in particular is actually really good, is to use hashtags, of course, and find out what are the top trending hashtags that are trending right now, okay? So if we look, again, depending on when you're listening to this episode, of course, all right? So some of the things that are trending in our industry right now would be AI, because there's such a big, massive thing around AI and ChatGPT that has just come out, for example. We've got things like blockchain technology. We've got what else have we got going on in the world? We've also got things like sort of non-political based topics and angles as well. So, for example, if there is a news story that's just come out and it might be suddenly about, I don't know, the economy or about pension plans or whatever it is, depending on what your industry, your topic, or your niche is, what sort of angle could you do? What can you do to piggyback off of current trends or industry trends that are really kind of like, really kind of like making headlines out there, if that makes sense. So what I would do is I would actually do some research first. And, Twitter's the best way to do this. You can use the hashtag, put in hashtag in the browser in Twitter and start putting in words that's relevant to your industry just to see how many hits you're getting, how much traffic is being generated. Hey, you could even go on Google and put in top trending hashtags. And I can guarantee you it'll either give you a website or give you a resource as to the top trending hashtags that you need to be using that you can then piggyback so that when you create your story, article, post, video, whatever it is that you're creating in terms of content, you can then piggyback off of that current hashtag. Does that make sense? So that when people type in that hashtag, guess what? You're going to come up. This is where when you are creating content, especially for like things like video and audio content in particular, this is where it becomes when it becomes viral. Does that make sense? So this is a really interesting part. The other thing as well, one of the other things that we do and teach our clients as well is using Twitter in particular, actually, to build a relationship with journalists. So let me give you kind of like a framework, if you like, with regards to how do you connect with journalists, right? How do you find out like what they want, okay, without taking up too much of their time? Because journalists are very busy people, right? Well, aren't we all? But also, how can you create an angle, okay, or a story to be able to kind of get featured in whatever media they represent? Does that make sense? So the first thing is, what I was going to say to you is, if you're using Twitter, actually, again, find out if you was to write a list of all the different media outlets that you'd like to be featured in. So again, depend on what industry you're in. So if you are in, if you're a financial advisor, and imagine being featured in This Is Money, which is like a major website, for example, and being able to write an article for them, that would be like crazy, right? Or think of all the other, what sort of financial wealth podcasts that are out there. Think about the different types of thought leaders that are out there. So what sort of mediums could you tap into if it meant anything? For example, what are the big magazines and the big publications that you would love to be featured in? Start making a white list. So you probably have about, I don't know, 20, 25 on your whitelist specifically. You've got that whitelist of potential media outlets that you would like to be featured on. Now you then got to connect the dots and figure out, okay, so how do I get in front of these people? Well, you've got to find out who are the journalists that represent that media. So in our case, for example, in our industry, for example, in the world of business strategy and stuff like that, entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial publications such as Forbes magazine is a really good one for us. Things like Inc. magazine is another great one for us as well. So think of all the big publications in your industry, right? And then go onto Twitter, find out who the journalists are, okay, and contact them, right? So this is where the pitch is really, really crucial, okay? And don't tell people about your life story. People don't care about your life story. I just want to share that for full disclosure. People couldn't give a monkeys about your full story, especially journalists. They want to know how you can help them. They're very busy people. So if you're going to approach a journalist, right? If I was approaching a journalist on Twitter, one of the things that we teach our clients is I would just say, hey, whatever the name is, love to be connected on here. I saw your story or I saw your ask on Twitter on whatever topic is that they're looking for. I would love to share a story about this, or I've got a controversial angle on the article that you wrote on January 21st as an example, right? So journalists love that when you're short, sharp, and sweet, literally one paragraph, 1 to 2 paragraphs tops, and just an easy way that they can contact you. Does that make sense? Really important. You can use LinkedIn as well, but journalists won't be on LinkedIn as much. Twitter is where you're going to find a lot of people. I want to give you a really big tip here as well. A really, really, really great tip. So one of the great Facebook groups that I'm part of called Lightbulb. Okay. Now, Lightbulb is a paid Facebook group. I think you pay like £6 a month or whatever it might be, but they have all of the journalists in there. And so you'll have people like myself, leaders, thought leaders, etc., that are in that group, but they're connected directly to the journalists. If you want to save yourself a lot of research, save yourself a lot of heartache, do me a favor, check out on Facebook, go to Facebook groups, okay, and type in Lightbulb, and it will come up with a group. Pay your £6 or whatever it might be, but then you've got instant access to journalists. The other thing is that once you have access to journalists, right, is to keep your eyes and ears open. Okay. And what I mean by that is that journalists are always looking for interesting stories. They're always looking for interesting angles and different perspectives, right? So in the Lightbulb group in particular, you'll get journalists that are featured as, they might be featured that represent, I don't know, a magazine, but they may also represent like ITN News, for example, or CNN or the BBC or whatever it is. Those are the types of journalists that, that are really looking for some amazing stories. And they'll ask for something, and you might want to direct message them or just drop a message below and say, hey, I can help with that, or I can help with that, whatever. And then you get commission for a piece, right? Does that make sense? So it's really important to keep your eyes and ears open. Look for those current trends and keep your eyes out in terms of opportunities. What could you do in terms of like giving your perspective, your opinion? And I always find that controversial angles are probably one of the most trending ways. And the reason why I say that is purely because if you've got like a really, I don't know, if you've got a very hot topic, say the topic was around the benefits of ChatGPT and how you can use it to grow your business. I use that as an example, right? Well, your angle could be is why ChatGPT and artificial intelligence could hurt your business, right? I'd be interested to read that because I don't know much about AI or ChatGPT, but it's kind of looking at a different argument, all right? So it's kind of, there's no right or wrong answer. It's your opinion. It's subjective at the end of the day, right? Does that make sense? So think about how you could put a story and turn it on its head in terms of like the different angles. So that for me is a great way to build relationships for journalists and stuff like that. And I'm just giving you a great shortcut as well. So, by the way, I'm not paid any commission for endorsing Lightbulb Facebook group, but they're just a great Facebook group, by the way. It's just kind of full disclosure there anyway. The other thing as well, and I want to kind of like, again, some of you may or may not know me on a personal level, but I do a lot of speaking, as you guys know. But speaking is also a great way to, get in front of potential prospects, potential partnerships, and collaborations. And, even more of a great way to get exposure and visibility as well. And the best way that you can do that is I actually recommend using LinkedIn to really kind of like research who are the event organizers in your space that you could connect with. And again, I always like to leave a nice, very simple voice note. Okay. And it might say something like, hey, Joe Blogs, hope you're having a great day and great to connect with you here on LinkedIn. As a keynote speaker, I saw that you were looking for, I saw that you run events in the leadership space. Would you be interested in having a conversation around the future of leadership or something like that, right? So what you're trying to do is you're trying to build rapport with those event organizers and enhance your credibility, because speaking is just a great way to get exposure. Whether you start off doing things for free and getting your expenses paid for, or getting paid for it, whether it be through virtual or through live speaking events as well. And there's a couple of key things, especially if you're going down the speaking route as well, is get yourself a media pack. And if you're not sure what a media pack is, go into Google, type in speakers media pack, and you'll get some great examples of what a media pack is and what it should contain and stuff like that. And the other thing that is an absolute key necessity when it comes to going down the speakers angle is get a speakers reel. Now, some of you may or may not have any speaking experience, and that's absolutely fine. If you've got a really good video editor who can put together some great footage about the types, and even if you've got like some bits and pieces of you speaking at smaller events, it doesn't matter. You can really turn, if you've got a really magical editor who can turn into to a really good speakers reel, it can give an event organizer like that, like, oh, wow, that's amazing type of thing. I need to bring this person on or whatever it might be. So that is another angle as well to be able to get really good PR and press. The other thing as well is to think a little bit about press releases as well. We haven't really spoken about press releases, but PR wire is a big one in the press release space, for example. So again, writing, I'm not a great writer, by the way. I normally get those things commissioned for me. But what we're looking for really is how to, again, looking at, people don't care about your products and services, right? It's about, what problems can you solve in your industry, right? What is it that you can, again, people don't really care about books as such. They want to know, like, again, what's the benefits of why they should read the book, right? What sort of topics are you covering? So thinking about like different press releases, and again, you can use, there are a variety of different platforms that can help you not just write great press releases, but more importantly, it's not about the content of the press release. Well, it plays an important role, especially in the first couple of hours, but it's more around distribution. You need to be able to get distribution to that press release. And again, that will help generate web traffic. That will maybe create an influx of connections with you for you on social media and stuff like that. So that's kind of like, from my perspective, the other thing I'd kind of like wanted to mention here as well is TV, because TV's really evolved over the last sort of few years since sort of Netflix and the Amazon Prime have come in and things like that. But there are a lot of not mainstream TV stations, but more kind of like what I call streaming TV stations, which are featured on like the Amazon Primes and the Netflix of today. And again, these private TV stations, or I know that there are some great TV stations, again, reaching out to those event organizers and people that are part of that channel, looking for different stories and about ways in which you can contribute at the end of the day. Does that make sense? So I hope this is kind of giving you some ideas about how you can really kind of like leverage PR and media. I mean, we could talk about this subject all day, but I wanted to like condense this down into something which is kind of like bite-sized chunks more than anything else. So let's just summarize today's conversation. By the way, I hope that you're enjoying today's conversation. If you are, do me a favor, give us a like, share, a comment in the comment section below. That'd be super awesome. If you're listening to the podcast, if you do resonate with some of the tips, some of the tactics, and some of the strategies that I'm sharing with you, and you feel like you're getting some value, please do me a favor, go over onto Apple or Spotify. I would be really, really appreciated if you could leave a 1 or a 5-star review on any of those sites. That would be like super awesome. So in summary, at the beginning, I talked a little bit about how to approach journalists, and I talked a little bit about using trending hashtags and how controversial stories, or turning a story upon its head in order to get traction. Does that make sense? In order to build a relationship with the journalist as well. How to find, what I was going to say, I mentioned a Facebook group called Lightbulb, which has been super useful for us. How to use Twitter, how to use Twitter the right way and stuff like that, and how to pitch to journalists in 1 sentence or less, right? So no stories. They just want to know, why are you messaging me, right? Okay. And what do you want? Basically, in a nutshell, okay? And I have to be very blunt about that, because, again, journalists are on deadlines. They're very busy people. They get multiple pitches that are sent to them. what you've got to think to yourself is, why should they talk to you and why should they care? So that's the big question you have to ask yourself. The other thing that I mentioned as well in today's show is speaking and the benefits of speaking as well. And I mentioned about some of the, some clients that we're working with and helping them get some exposure for some visibility. There's also some great speakers bureaus, which you can also tap into. So if you go into Google, type in speakers bureaus, and you can get some very good exposure just by creating a profile. And if you've got a media pack, creating a media pack and a speaker's reel, that's really going to enhance your credibility as well. And, also things like podcasting as well is going to get some great exposure. It's a great platform, by the way, for just practicing your trade. Even if you're doing things like live streams into a private Facebook group initially, that's also great practice ground for, again, getting yourself visible, getting yourself out there and getting some attention, getting eyeballs on you effectively. Does that make sense? And then the other thing I mentioned around is around press releases as well. And what you need to do to put into a press release, what you shouldn't put into a press release, right? So I talked a little bit about that too, and how you could really leverage PR and marketing and media, PR and media more specifically in order to enhance your brand. So listen, guys, I hope that as today's brought some value. I don't know. I'm not sure if it's brought any value, but I hope it has brought some value from today. And I hope it's given you some sort of epiphanies, given you some ideas more specifically. And if you have any questions, do me a favor, use the questions in the comment section below, either over on YouTube, LinkedIn, or on Twitter. That's where we're streaming right now. If you have any questions and you want to reach out and you want to come as part of our trial and stuff like that, we have a wonderful Telegram group, which I've put the link below, and we'll put the Telegram group also in the podcast notes. So if you're listening to this in the gym or on your daily commute, you can listen to us. You can see it over on Telegram. And the other thing I wanted to, again, I mentioned this numerous times as well. Have you ever kind of imagined where it would be, how easy it would be if you knew which area of your business needs to grow? Okay, you just didn't know how to do it, right? Or what area that you need to focus on. Because do you know what? It can be very difficult to get that kind of like top-down perspective if you're working in the trenches or if you're working like in the business specifically. So if you believe that's going to be of value to you, we've actually created an amazing scorecard called howtogrowbusiness.scoreup.com. Go on to there. It takes you about 3 minutes. They're simple yes, no answers. And we also score you against 5 different areas. And at the end, you get a score for each area. But also you'll get some tips and some tactics about how you can make sudden improvements to those particular areas too. So listen, hope today's been of use to you. I've certainly enjoyed our conversations. And if anything has resonated with you today, I'd be super grateful and love to hear from you guys as well. Please leave a 1 or a 5-star review over on Apple or on Spotify. Anyway, enough of me harking on. Hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and we'll see you again on the next Game Changers experience. Take care, and we'll see you soon.